Alright, for this section of the review, I am going to be shooting it on the T6s, and you'll notice before I announce that I switch over to the 80D, maybe you'll see just how quick it takes to focus. The lens I'm using for this, and it'll be the same lens on both cameras, is an EFS 10 to 18, so it's an ultrasonic mid-range lens for most of us entry-level shooters. And then right now I'm just going to start and do a little comparison as far as these two lenses go. If you saw my unboxing, you know some of the new features. Definitely go back and check that video out of the new lens, but let's get started. So the previous lens, which I thought was a little lighter than the new version, is actually just a smidge taller. I would say, if you're starting out, it's just maybe a lens cap taller. Let me get against the lighter background there. So, quarter to a half inch taller, but any size and that you can shave off for easier carry is great. Weight-wise, I've zeroed out this scale here. So the previous version of the 18 to 135 is 1 pound, 2.3 ounces. Pretty easy to see. The new version is 1 pound, 3.3. So an extra ounce heavier. You can tell it in the hand, but by the numbers, it doesn't seem like that much. However, it is wider, and that probably has to do with the new Nano USM. Here, let me get a better light. Nano USM, the ultrasonic motor in there. Supposed to run significantly quieter, which I'm excited to see. I'll do some comparison between, each camera with each 18 to 135 and change some focal points. And show that up on the screen, but for right now, that's the initial impression between the two lenses as far as size and weight. Feature-wise, they're still both going to be great lenses. I've had great luck with each. I'm really excited to see the difference in speed of focus between the T6s and 80D as we get going here on each lens, but I am looking forward to see the sound suppression of that autofocus when it's on its own, whether it's tracking or I'm zooming in and out. And cool thing is, once you get that external motor for this lens, and that's really the big thing, is it has this port here for the, and you can see the pins, where you can add that external zoom motor. It's supposed to be able to adjust completely silently, and that's pretty exciting. But that's it for the lenses right now. Alright, so for the sake of the comparison, the 80D portion of the comparison will be shot with the T6s camera, and the T6s will be shot with the 80D. So you'll be able to see the difference in quality, vice versa, and I'll notify it on screen with a little annotation when that happens. And then, unfortunately, without another camera, when they're both on the table at the same time, I'll either be using my Hero 4 Black GoPro or maybe my iPhone. I don't know. We'll see which works out better. Probably I'll just do it in the Hero, but initial... Oh, get the scale back on. Initial things, like I said, the body of the camera initially feels a little heftier for the 80D. Weight-wise, which we'll jot it down and I'll put in the notes of the video, but the weight on this is 1 pound, 7.7 ounces. So basically, if you're rocking this with that kit lens that comes with the 18 to 135, you're gonna be looking at 2 pounds, 2 pounds, 11 ounces. Total. And so it's not a huge thing. I can tell you that this ledge is super functional when you're carrying it around. I will tell you that the difference between this one and the T6s, when you are holding it, it has the same lip here, which is pretty nice because you can really get your finger to rest in there and it takes some of the weight for you, but it is a little wider. Like, I can feel that I can't quite wrap around like I was able to on the T6s, but walking around all day, having your fingers get in around the front of it that easily makes it super comfortable when you're walking around all day. Some of the other body comparison you're gonna see here, and let me really get in here. And you're gonna notice up top here initially, the LCD readout is going to be segmented, so you can see the dividers there in the screen along with the icons and individual buttons. So when you're running and gunning, need to make a change on the fly, once you learn those buttons and your keys, it's going to be super easy to do that. It's going to be easier to see. I'm really looking forward to the cleaned up display. One thing that was a bright spot for me on the T6s was even having this display, just because with previous models and the T6i, you have no display up there. So you'd be constantly, flipping down, looking at your LCD, things of that variety. and having to make the change there. So having the LCD on top is super nice for that, but I do like that it's spread out with the individual keys. Some of the change to the controls on top, other than that, you do have some different keys here. I really like the different type of toggle switch at the top here. So that's gonna go one between camera and video mode, which you can see right there. The other thing is it's got a true start-stop. So on the T6s, when we look at that, you're going to be able to see that it's got just a button that will cycle you through whether you're using the LCD screen as a viewfinder, your true viewfinder, or putting it or initiating a video mode, where this guy on the left shoulder just has an on-off. Super easy. So if you know what mode you're in, there's no guessing whether you pushed it 2 switches versus 1. Here you're going to have more customizable modes you can set up. There's 2 customizable modes on here, along with your normal, you know, M, AV, TV, P modes, and some of your other auto modes with no flash or what have you. Hot shoe, pretty standard. Big thing in comparison, and you'll see this when I do the side-by-side some more, but you'll see the ability for NFC, which is more for Android users, but you'll also see the ability for a headset. So the headset's pretty awesome because you can actually monitor your video. So that is one leg up on the T6s, just because as you're shooting video, you don't really know how it sounds. So if you're doing an unboxing, or you know, got someone that you're listening to or recording and you want to hear how they sound while they're talking to you, really a guessing game until post, and you might not be able to fix it unless you're charging externally. So that's one big difference. The other difference that you can look at, and it's actually in the background here, as far as the body of the camera goes, not really too much else changed on there. It's going to be the ability to focus, and you can see if I'm holding something here and bringing it closer to the camera. So the speed in which that focuses without me having to prompt it on the actual screen is going to be something that's going to be a little better for the 80D. A couple of reasons. Better processing power. It's got a different type of motor in there as well, but the main thing is going to be the 45 points of cross type focus. So it's going to be able to lock on the things a little better, polish up the image for you, and it's not going to have the, I guess, the lag in that focus. It's going to find it a little faster. So the proof will really be in the pudding. I'm going to do some side-by-side testing with that on my 10 to 18 lens I'm using now, as well as the 18 to 135, and go back and forth so you guys can see. Alright, so got the T6s here. You'll see a lot more in the side-by-side, but here's some of the control differences that I had mentioned with the 80D. So you've got a different D-pad here. So the ring on the outside is smooth, but getting into this inner ring is a little tough with the different settings there. Just because they had to cram in some settings on the back that weren't necessarily on top. So with that 80D, you were able to see that you had 4 individual keys with more of a segmented LCD. They were able to fit this LCD in just because it's better than no LCD, but at the same time it is not as expansive, and the controls are changed up quite a bit, not maybe as functional in one area. You're not going to have the as many customizable modes, full custom modes that you can create like you can on the 80D. And then here's the big thing for me, which I like the simplicity of the 80D. You're going to be able to see here that on this shoulder there's just off, on, and video. I like just the off, on switch. Just because, you know, if you're quick and you think you hit it 1 or 2 and you got to go back and forth. I like personally having that split up. On top of that, viewfinder's a little bigger. The screen's a little more robust on the 80D, although you do have the same angles. Now, one thing that I did mention on the 80D, you'll see that this screen, when you rotate it, it does kind of cross up over the port there for the microphone or the shutter. And so what they've done, or HDMI cables for that matter, what they've done is they've moved those out of the way so they're outside the rotation of the screen. But getting back to when you're shooting the video, it's only got this one key here, and this button actually toggles between using the viewfinder, using the LCD as the viewfinder, and then using or initiating the video. So having that broken up, I think, is a little easier, especially if you have someone running the camera for you while you're trying to get your own shot or get in the shot. I think that's pretty awesome. But let's go ahead and weigh it up. I can tell you just from holding it, it's not as wide or not as much mass over there. It is still really easy to grip, and it is going to be a little bit lighter of a camera. I can tell you that right now, but that's just because of the reduction in size. 80D, I believe, was 1 pound, 7.7 ounces. This guy's 1.4.5. So it's about a 3-ounce difference, which you can definitely feel in the hand. Although you have the same compatibility for lenses and the ability to use it. I'm super excited when I get this thing and you can actually see the side by side, and we'll do some measurements there, so it's a little more real life as far as how it looks versus how I'm explaining it, you know. But one thing I hope you can pick up, and again, a little bit at the mercy of this lens. It's a great lens. It's the EFS 10-18, but I can already tell a difference in how quickly that autofocus finds the change in the focal point much quicker. And you know, that's going to be because the 45 autofocus points are points of focus, but they're all cross type and they've got phase detection and all this. So you know, you have plenty of autofocus points in the T6s, which is, I believe, more than the 19 that's in the 70D. But having 45 is just crazy. I mean, basically, it's going to be able to pick up something no matter where you're at on the screen, no matter what depth, you know, doing it super easy. And I'm not having to do what I normally did with the T6s, and that's pay attention to my LCD in the back, what I'm looking at, and tap to constantly, you know, prompt it where it's going to autofocus. Like here, here, no, I'm bringing something closer to camera, tap there. So I really like that so far. But as far as the camera layout and the button layout, that's what you've got. You'll have to kind of learn your way as you go, but still, super awesome camera. For anyone who's looking to get into video, you know, highly recommend. Those are just the initial comparisons that I noticed in the size, weight, and then now it's time for the side-by-side. Alright, so the first test here will be the ability to zoom. So we're going to go all the way from 18 to 135, and this is on the 80D, and see how fast it can adjust from, you know, different focal lengths and then different points by touching on the live view screen. Alright, so we'll get started here. This is 18. I'm just going to tap here on that barricade, and then it'll keep its focal point there. Just zoom in. Pretty quick as far as focus. Now if I change that and get out of there, let's just change our point here. I want to get rid of my focal point there. So if I don't have something picked out specifically, we're at 18 right now, and I zoom out all the way to 135, it finds a focus pretty quick. Now if I'm sitting here and I'm jumping between that far section of fence, it's going to get in focus, blur out the truck a little bit, but then I can come back to this wheel and get it really crisp in focus. Alright, so we'll do the same testing with the T6s. So right now I am on the live view screen and I'm pressing on that barricade now. The focal box is having a hard time trying to find that barricade. It keeps searching behind it. It's getting a little lost in the wash there. But as I flash out forward there, it did find the focus pretty quickly, but it did have to search a little more than the 80D did as well. Now if we move it and just go a little farther down the pass here. So starting with no focal point, just letting the camera do its thing. Starting at 18 all the way out to 135. It does tend to search a little bit more, try to find that right field of depth to get that focus point. The 80D didn't have to do that. It pretty much was able to lock onto something and crispen up. And even here, it still doesn't quite have it without me having to. There it goes. It finally did it. But you can tell it searches a little more. It hunts for that focus point that the 80D doesn't quite have to do. So that's pretty awesome, because as I'm doing something, or if I'm following a subject that happens to change depths, it's not exactly moving horizontal, that's going to be something that I'm going to like to be able to keep that focus no matter where it's going, and not have to hunt back and forth. So right now that's a big check mark for the 80D while using this 18 to 135 lens and zooming in and out. Alright, now this last test I put the 10 to 18 back on. I'm just going to change focal points, you know, from something where it's just picked up the fence behind. See how close it, you know, gets to finding my hand here real quick on a closer. And this is on the T6s. Still really hasn't found it. I'm going to have to actually click on the live view screen for it to zoom in completely on my hand and find that focal point, and then when it goes away, it finds the depth pretty well, but that closer focal point it has a hard time finding, and still continues to hunt and select it until you actually find it on the LCD. Alright, so we're going to run that same test that we did with the T6s. This is going to be the 80D right here, and one thing I noticed, it picks up a little bit of the white balance a little better during dusk or some of this night shooting when I'm, you know, just changing my depth of focus here.
tends to find things and balance out a lot quicker. But anyway, going back to that same test we had, we'll get a halfway decent zoom here. Everything's in focus beyond. I haven't picked a focal point yet. It's doing its own thing. So when I throw my hand up in front of it real close, it finds my hand and gets a really quick focus on there without me having to use the LCD screen on the back. So just as far as what it can find and where it's going to focus, just on its own, it seems to not hunt as much as the T6s, and it's really utilizing the processor in there, and it's locking on because of all the additional focal points. It's able to find that depth of field much quicker than when the T6s was still in the decision-making process of where it should focus. So even with a wide angle like 10 to 18 like this, and if you have something that's in the foreground versus the background, you're going to be able to change your focus between the two much easier without the hunting or the figuring out of where it should be, as in the T6s. And so that's going to be on either lens, not just the longer lens. Alright, so for the side-by-side, I decided to use my GoPro, and kind of a sketchy setup because I put my double horseshoe mount on top of the GoPro. Luckily I have a an aluminum frame that I got from Amazon, which works out really well, especially if you're just having it outside and you just want your mic on top. And I'll do a separate review on that later, but I'll put in some pictures of the sketchiness that this thing almost was balanced on top of a small tripod on a chair. But right now I'm using my Hero 4 Black to record this. We'll do 4K. Hopefully the lighting's pretty good. I got my normal lighting plus a small LED cold shoe light up there. So anyway, getting back to it, you can probably see pretty plainly that the 80D is going to sit a little taller than the T6s. Side profile is also going to be, heftier. It's plain to see that it's a more sophisticated, bulkier camera. But this is one thing that I was trying to explain earlier. The layout of the inputs. So here you've got the mic and shutter, and then your HDMI and video out. Well, you still have those here close to the hinge, but out here you have a separate shutter and then a mic, and the big thing is the headphones, so you can monitor your audio while you're listening, so that way you know what's going on. The reason that's important is you're going to be a little more accurate with what you're hearing. You're not going to have the ability to save a lot of audio sometimes and post edit, so it's important that you get it right the first time. But the big thing is where they're located with the screen on the T6s. When you're flipped out all the way here, you can see how it overlaps where that input is, and that's really the big thing, because your cord will get caught, or you won't be able to have the full dexterity of your screen when you're trying to use it if you have an external mic plugged in, which I definitely recommend. Always use an external mic if you have the chance. Boom mic. I don't use the highest end. I use a Rode. Basically, it was like $100. It doesn't have an auxiliary power. That's probably the next step I'll go to, but I got it because I don't have to remember to turn it on or off. I plug it in. It works. I can use it with my GoPro. It works. Simple enough. But you can definitely see the size difference, and you'll definitely notice it here as we lay these down. You can see it's definitely bigger on this end. That's where I said I kind of liked it as far as being able to feel a little more in my hand. But you can see the wide viewfinder. That 2% from the 70D to the 80D as far as the 98 view angle, I believe this is 95. That makes a big difference. I mean, just looking in the few times I had the video turned on the 80D so far, super big difference. Really enjoy it. And then right now we're gonna get, now I'll put the 18 to 135 lens on each of them, and we'll be able to see what I'm talking about. All right, so we've got the lens on each right here. As you can see, definitely looks like a longer profile here. That's just because it's not hidden in some of the camera body. But if you stack them up, and we'll try to stack them as close to even as I can get them, you really look like you're dealing with about the same size camera. So pretty happy with how they are. But one thing I was trying to show you, and which I'll get ready here, is that viewfinder. And I know this is going to be all jacked up as far as focal points with these things, but let me get these cranked on and I'll show you the comparison. Alright, so I'm going to slide these into the same shot. Now this is the 80D. This is, just on video mode.
at the 18mm and just what you can see there. Now I'm going to slide the T6s in, centered on the same box, and we'll be able to see the difference. And you can see just how it picks up a little differently. It may not be as true to what you're getting, but still a great camera, still a great LCD. Definitely enjoy the ability to touch to my different focal points. You know, if I want to focus beyond, up front, you know, it's really super quick to change. The T6s, for the money, is value in a camera that you can't find many other places. So right there, we'll leave it at that. As far as the demo for the screen, or the LCD touchscreen, they're both going to be capacitive touchscreens, really easy to go through menus. The menu is going to be a little more invasive on the 80D, but there's more options, so you'll have that.